I think we're about ready to start.
I know.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Axe to grind with Pritzker.
Mike, are we ready?
Not. That was not good.
Okay, 7:01 now. I was going to start right on time, but now we're starting late. Darn. Okay. Like to call to order the September 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson? Here. Bill?
Here.
Griffin?
Here.
Grimes?
Here.
Haug? Hintz? Rivera?
Here.
Rodriguez?
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. And before we get started, I'd like to give Mr. Kisher-Lepper a chance to come up. She wanted to say a few words before we start. Are you on? Uh-oh.
Okay, let's try that again.
Sounds better.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for letting me have a minute of your time at the start of the meeting. I wanted to make an introduction to you. Tyler, would you come up? Come on over here so they can say hi. This is Tyler Williams. He's our new assistant planner. Today is his first day. So he's brand spanking new.
Good to have you with us.
And you'll be meeting and hearing from him at future meetings, but today he's just here to watch a little bit. He's seen your meetings before on YouTube, so he's familiar with you, though I wanted to make you familiar with him before you start hearing from him at the podium. So thanks, Tyler.
Nice smile.
Welcome.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
And Isabel is back.
Isabella's back.
Great to have you. Glad to
Indeed.
see you're okay.
Yes.
All recovered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the minutes. This will be the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 14th, 2022. We did not have a meeting in August, so our last meeting was July 14th. You all have a copy of the minutes in your packet, and I'd like a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Grimes, motion to approve, second by Commissioner Anderson. Any comments, corrections, changes to the minutes? I would just like to suggest one change on page 6 under zoning calendar 2674, the first line of the text, just a spelling correction. Whose should be W-H-O-S-E, just so that we appear literate. I'd like that change, please. Anybody else have any other corrections or changes? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
I don't even know
Hintz?
where page 6 is.
Back page.
Haug? Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries, minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is audience time. Now, this is an opportunity for anybody that's here that would like to address the commission on any topic, whether it's on the agenda or not. This is typically for items that are not on the agenda. You have a chance to address the commission. During the meeting, as we conduct the hearings, the audience will have a time to participate in the actual hearings and comment and ask questions on any of the items that are on the agenda. But this is just a chance for anybody who wants to come up and address the commission on any item at all. Is there anybody here that would like to do that? Okay, moving on. Old business. Item 4, do we have any old business that we need to discuss? I don't believe we do. New business. Okay. Zoning calendar number, let's see, item A, zoning calendar number 2675, conditional use permit for a private school at 1300 West 10th Street. Now, wait a minute, I had the other one. Here's the new agenda, has a zoning calendar, item A, 2665. That was a conditional use permit for a school bus storage yard with a repair facility at 500 North Green Bay Road. This says withdrawn by petitioner. Does that mean that this whole item is withdrawn permanently?
Yes, sir, it does. I'll just speak louder for now, and we'll try another set of batteries. These don't seem to be working. It does mean that it's withdrawn permanently. They were not able to close on their purchase of the property.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Item B, zoning calendar number 2675. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a private school at 1300 West 10th Street. This says held over at request of petitioner?
Yes, they have requested that we hold that one until the next meeting.
Okay. This is going quickly.
This is moving right along.
Moving right along. I like this kind of meeting. Okay, item C, zoning calendar number 2676, conditional use permit for an automotive service at 1120 West Washington Street. Who is going to be presenting on that? Are you the only one that's going to be speaking on this? Yes, sir. Okay, I know you have some gentlemen with you. Is there a chance that they might be called on to answer some questions or anything?
I wouldn't be asking them questions, but if you have.
Yeah, we might be. Okay. Can I just swear everybody in, please? Anybody that might be speaking on this matter, please stand. Raise your right hand. Okay. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Jonan, please come forward. Well, he didn't. Is he going to speak? Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Jonan. And welcome. Haven't seen you around here in a while.
That's probably a good thing.
Busy.
So good evening, Chairman Rodriguez and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Also, good evening, Attorney Martinez. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Jonam. I'm an attorney. I represent Mauricio Cuevas. That's the gentleman right there in the yellow shirt. And he's also known as Mo, and he's the owner of Mo Tires Waukegan Incorporated. It's located at 1120 Washington Street at the corner of Washington and Edison Court. And what we're here about is basically a conditional use permit that Mr. Cuevas needs so that he can then have his business license again. And when I say again, I want to kind of go back a little bit and tell you a little bit of the story, because this is kind of a family story. It's also, it's a story of a Waukegan business. It's multi-generational, and it's been, thank you, sir, and it's been in operation since his father acquired the property in 1992. And so at that time, Mo was 2 years old, and his father started an automotive shop and had this vision to leave this business as he built it up to his children, to Mauricio and a sibling. So fast forwarding, after Mauricio graduated from high school, he went to high school in Waukegan. So Waukegan family, and it's a Waukegan story of, you know, just kind of just scratching it out and working your way up and building what at least I would consider to be a successful business. But when Mauricio graduated from high school, he started working at the automotive shop, and he was doing whatever they asked him to do, and he's come to know the operations of the business. Unfortunately, then there came a time when he and his sister were engaged in litigation about who was going to run the business, who was going to own the business, and it wasn't something where they were going to be able to coexist. And eventually, he was able to buy his sister out. And so I'll spare you with all the litigation part of it, but he's able to buy his sister out and become the 100% sole owner, and because his business was operating for a period of time at one end and the sisters at another end, and there was too many conflicts, business-wise and family-wise, and so the better thing here was for one person to take over, and he was able to do it. And in doing that, basically, we have a situation where I would say that things kind of fell through the cracks. He's now trying to become take over the whole business, fix some of the things that he inherited that he wasn't expecting to inherit, and he did not. It was a grandfathered business license with a conditional use permit, and so at the time when it came to his knowledge to renew his business license, then too much time had elapsed. So I'm telling you all this to say this is not something new. Of course, we had to go through the process to make the application, but this is the way that there was permission, and this has always been an automotive shop, but there was permission for it to operate as such for 30-plus years. So to that end, I'm just letting you know this is not something where there was an office and we're trying to make an automotive shop or anything like that. This has always been this type of business. There is parking for this business across on the west side of Edison Court. There is a lot there that Mo Tires leases from the Lake County Department of Transportation. There is enough space, and this is my hand drawing, but there's enough space there to have 24 parking spaces, and we've been working with staff here to know that we were going to have enough space and to count the spaces and have them be the appropriate size of what the city of Waukegan would require for our parking space. So there's enough space to park 24 cars there, and so the parking is not an issue. There are overhead doors. There are 2 overhead doors on the Edison Court side. That's where most of the ingress is. A lot of times a car will pull in there, have their work done, the tires changed or a tire fixed or a tire patched, and then back out that way. In the event that a car needs to exit, there is an overhead door on the Washington Street side, and when a car exits there, and I've experienced it myself, then one of the employees of Mo Tires Waukegan will help guide that car out so that they're not coming out blindly into what can be, busy traffic on Washington Street. There's been, and I want to leave time for your questions, but I think that the application, and hopefully you received that in advance, is self-explanatory. There have been some suggestions about paving the parking space, about adding some shrubbery in between the parking and the bike path. Currently, there's just a strip of grass there now, and Mo is willing to do that and add the shrubbery. There's also in the site plan, there is a aspect of the business in which there's, I'm going to say, tire recycling, but that recycling doesn't take place at this site. He collects the tires, and then those tires are taken elsewhere for recycling. So, and those tires are stored in a container. They're not out in the open. There's no harm or threat to the public or some sort of impediment for just having loose tires out there. And the other part that I wanted to cover in terms, well, part of it is in terms of, again, the personal story here of Mauricio. He is a supporter, and Mo Tires is a supporter of various philanthropic efforts here in Waukegan. And I mean, sports between the Booster Club, fall sports, spring sports, donates to fire and police here in Waukegan, And so, you know, we would hope and welcome your questions, but hope and ask for your approval so that we can try to get him back into business. He does employ 9 other people, and that's been a struggle because right now, not in operation as an automotive shop, but he did and was able to obtain a retail license from the city. So now when I say we, I mean he is able to do retail in terms of the selling of tires, but that's not the main thrust of the business. And so to be able to hopefully get his employees back, because, you know, they can be loyal, but they still have mouths to feed as well and families to support as well. And so he's trying to stay in touch with them, but he wants to be able to get back in business, get the employees back, and comply with any reasonable request of staff or of the city. So at this time, we welcome your questions.
Any of the commissioners have any questions for the petitioner or his attorney?
I see
Commissioner Rivera.
that he has a lot of conditions that he has to meet. You're looking at 18 conditions. Is he going to be able to, 21.
21, yes, sir.
21. He'll be able to meet these conditions? Because those are a lot of conditions.
Yes, there are quite a few conditions.
Yeah.
Many of those are already things that part of the operation of the business when it is in full operation. Some of them are some tweaks. Some of them are, you know, the traditional boilerplate in terms of complying with state and federal laws, that type of thing. So I would submit to you that he would be able to and meets many of these. There's a few of them that would be, I would call conditions over time. So, and when I say that, I'm referencing specifically the parking, that area, because right now it's a gravel parking area, and, you know, but also so there's a condition about paving that, and we've talked about it. He's willing to do it. Feel free to ask him about it. Also, too, though, you know, that whole part of Edison right there, the street is kind of broken itself. So it would be, I think, good if we can even be aware or advised whenever there may be a chance to renovate that street, and so that the paving that he's going to do can kind of be seamless with that street repair. But yeah, some of it is over time in terms of the green space and the shrubbery, the paving, and some of them are already being met, and some of them are boilerplate. So that's a long way of saying yes, Councilman Rivera.
I just had a question about that parking area. Can you talk about that a little bit? Tell us what the arrangement is with that. I know it doesn't belong to,
Yes, there's a lease.
there's a lease with
Lake County.
Lake County, right?
And the lease has been updated because it was a lease that was when Mr. Cuevas, Gustavo Cuevas is his father. So he had the lease, and that lease has been updated, renewed, and re-signed with Mo Tires, and it covers. If you're familiar with the premises, it's just across the street, and then there's a gravel area, there's a strip of grass, then you have the bike path, and then you have booners.
I know that other people use that parking. It's not just his customers that use that.
I think at least as far as what's under his control, it's his customers if they're coming to stop.
I see people parking their cars and going across the street, across Washington.
Sir,
Thank you.
Here, just hold on, and then they can hear you.
Yeah, this is being recorded, so that's the only way you can get picked up.
Booners gets busy at night.
I get busy during the day. So I told Booners, you go ahead and park your parking, you take, the parking as long as you don't leave them overnight, or if somebody does need to leave it overnight, just don't leave it over 2 days, 3 days, because somebody might, leave it, just in case. But yeah, but other people, I don't give them a hard time as long as, they don't give my customers a hard time. But that, I don't force it too strict, but I don't like them blocking up the street or parking, sometimes they want to come in north and park on the south end. They want to park. I crack down on that too myself.
Okay, I'm just wondering how you would control that.
The parking?
Yeah.
We're going to create lines. We're going to create lines. So we got 24 spaces. So, once they see the lines, I'm sure they're going to figure out that that's where you need to park, not, all over, how they tend to do.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Anderson had a question.
Well, it's sort of along the same lines. The agreement with the county doesn't speak to any improvements of that property, and if you're going to improve it, are they going to be amenable to you putting in pavement or asphalt or whatever you're going to do?
So I think the agreement to the county does say that if improvements are required, then it's going to be at the renter's expense. So, and in that case, and I think it was discussed when the lease was being renewed, because we needed, they had given us a lease, but it wasn't signed by them. It was only signed by him. So anyway, at that time, when he had discussions with them, I think they discussed paving, but the understanding is it's at the renter's expense.
The grass.
But the
grass has to be
conditions,
cut.
Oh, yeah, the maintenance, basically.
Maintenance, floor, garbage. I pick up the garbage.
Snow plowing.
Yeah, snow plowing, et cetera.
well, condition number 20 talks about not only resurfacing, striping, and landscaping, but installation of landscape islands between every run of 10 parking spaces. So there are 26 spaces, so at least 2, maybe 3 islands. Are you prepared to do that?
Well, I think, again, as some of these are, I'm hoping that's still available for further discussion down the road. I couldn't say to you tonight that there's going to be islands, and it's quite a run of spaces. It's quite a run of property, but as far as the islands, I'm hoping that that's something still for further discussion with staff.
So in other words, some of these conditions are still up for debate.
I would say that was the only one, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think that was the only one that really, gave me a touch of concern. Being that we had some prior meetings, we had talked about the spaces, and we had definitely talked about the green space or having a buffer between the bike path and the parking spaces, and to have some shrubbery there and to maintain that shrubbery and the grass therein. But as far as these islands, that wasn't specifically discussed, but we're open to it. Yes. But I'm saying we didn't specifically discuss that with staff, but I do see that as one of the conditions.
Thank you. Commissioner Griffin.
I'm not concerned with a strip of grass or bushes. What you have there right now is a traffic nightmare, and much of it is caused by parents parking and picking up their children from the high school and from Abbott School. So I would suggest it would be more important for you to post your parking, that it belongs to you, and you can make agreements with towing companies to haul them out of there, but right now it is a mess. And it might not be your fault.
That's understood. And I think one thing that I would answer, and I think it partially answers yours and goes back to some of what was being previously discussed, is that there's also some adjacent nearby businesses across on the south side of Washington, and also if you go north on Edison. And so this business, there's a certain importance to it because it's kind of the hub, if you will. People sometimes will have their car being worked on, go across the street to eat at the restaurant, go and shop in the shop, or if they have, yes, things of that nature.
Get the haircut.
So I think they try to be good neighbors to one another, but as far as the school and the traffic situation with that, we will.
It might not be
we
your
will keep-
fault, but right now, you should post it that it's your parking and discourage people from blocking the street and blocking anybody else from parking there.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
that would be the first thing you need to do. You've got nothing to do with a bush or a strip of grass. Right now, it's a safety issue.
And when, just so we're clear, when you're saying that you're talking about blocking Edison, when you're saying blocking the street, or?
You can't turn off of Washington either.
Because you got.
You know, it's.
Because you got the school, you got.
If you want
you
to
got
go
Abbott,
at
and you got
1:30
the high
to
school.
3 o'clock, forget it.
I believe they need they do need somebody with a stop, the school bus, you know, the pass, because there's so many.
Crossing guard.
Across, I do believe in crossing, but I think it's also since I'm so lenient with the people and the customers, I don't go over there and try to, hey, move your car. We try not to do that, but if you want me, I could straighten it up and have them straight line, because I could have the 24 cars parked, and I could still have people parked behind those in a straight line so that they could pick up their kids. So I could work. I try to work with the people. You know, I don't want to be you know crazy with them either. You know, like move. But I do understand that they're picking up their kids. I do understand that they're going to go get their hair cut, or they're not that haircut. They're Family Dollar. Well, the Family Dollar guy's a parking lot. But let's say like the person right across the street that you pay your bill. You pay your bills with, or they're right next to it, like the bakery. They don't have much parking. They'll tend to try to park with me, or even the restaurant across the street when they're full. You know, they'll cross. You know, but
I think she's going to be more with the after-school safety, because you got the middle school and the high school.
I can enforce it. I can enforce it.
Excuse me a second. Mike, are they being picked up? I know they're a little distance from the microphone. Are you picking them up okay? Okay, good. Thank you.
But yes, we'll be mindful of that. Yes, ma'am.
Just a point,
Go ahead.
just a point of information. Is the lot lit at night at all? Is there any lighting?
There's a.
People are going to use it at night just for your liability. I'm thinking,
Yes.
I think there's a street light that glows on it, but there's not
Is there?
independent lighting. But you can speak to, you're there more than I am.
We got a light right on Washington, and there's a light right in the middle. So there's two. More than half the parking lot's lit. The other half, where in front of my neighbors, isn't too lit.
Okay.
So the south end is more
Northern
than
end.
than the north.
Yeah, southern end is more lit than the northern end.
Commissioner Anderson.
Will you be responsible for trash and that sort of thing on that property? The Rotary Club actually cleans that part of the bike path, and we do that as well, and it's always full of stuff. I know you know that. But.
It's just so, the Family Dollar behind me, the stores behind me, everybody, it's so repetitive, and there's so many people, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I go out and pick up, and then, like, for example, the parade just passed, and they cleaned up, but 3 days later, there was more garbage on the floor. It's wind, but the garbage was there again, but, that we picked that up, but, yeah, yes, we will pick up the parking lot, absolutely, thank you, yes.
Any other comments or questions for the petitioners? No? Okay. Anything else you want to say right now?
No, not at this
Okay,
time.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Opportunity. Thank you.
I'd like to ask if there's anybody here present that would like to speak out either in support of or opposition to this request. No? Okay. Moving along, I'd like to ask the city staff for their up-to-the-minute recommendation.
So I just wanted to inform you that after the notifications went out to the 250 feet, to the residences within the 250 feet of the property, we did get a few phone calls, letters, and just overall comments about this property. So with our conditions, we try to address those issues that they brought up. I would like to point to number 4. Currently, they do have a banner as a sign. We would like them to update that to an actual sign that would be accepted under the sign ordinance. Number 9, we heard that there are a lot of vehicles stored there. We can't confirm if they are or not, but with this condition, we would like that all vehicles, repaired or not, do not exceed 30 days. That way, there's movement of the cars. Number 12, all bad tires should be removed. Like they said, they have a storage bin, so we would like for it, when it's full, to be removed. So it doesn't exceed the capacity of that, and the place looks cleaner. Number 13, we did receive some noise complaints, and with this one, we would like, whatever that may be, to address that noise pollution that is coming from this location. It could be closing the bay doors during work hours if that limits the noise, but we would like to see some effort on that for the neighbors. Number 14, we did receive some comments that vehicles are being parked in front of the building. There is already a sign saying no parking at any time, so we would like those cars to be moved somewhere else or parked somewhere else. The curb is, I believe, painted yellow as well, saying that there is no parking in front of the building, so we would like to enforce that one as well. Number 16, we've received comments saying that this is a junkyard or a towing business. We would like to just reiterate that this is not a towing operation, so we would like for the owner to make sure that no towing would be allowed for the parking area that they have. Number 17, I believe they already do this, but Washington is a very busy street, so we would like employees to assist for the vehicles exiting the building. That way, there is no accidents. Number 18, Washington Street is one of our main corridors, and we do have a plan for Washington Street, but we would like this building to look nicer. There are some walls and paints around the windows that are chipping, so we would like them to repaint that area just so that it brings more, excuse me, just so it looks nicer on our Washington corridor. And then number 20, we would like to do, for them to apply the tree preservation and landscape ordinance to this parking along the street, Edison Court. So we will work with them to just improve that area overall so that there is no stacking of cars and it just overall looks nicer. And just overall, hearing your comments, if you would like to add 2 more conditions, one asking for parking signage along Edison Court, we can add that as a condition as well. And then the third, what would be 23, if you would like to limit the parking to only the business, we can add that condition as well, but that would be up to you.
Okay, before we have questions for city staff, I should have read this first, but we do have one letter. Were there any other letters received? I have one letter of objection. No? No, just one. I'd like to read this first. Okay, I should have read it before city presented theirs. This is from Maria Martinez Rugerbrecht, who is at 29 Edison Court. She is objecting for the following reasons: safety concerns of storage and maintaining of tires within the building, safety concerns of the corner of Washington Edison being a busy corner, It's a chaotic mess of vehicles flying in and out of the garage, overabundance of vehicles outside of the garage at night across the street. It's an open door for vandalism and squatting. Looks like a junkyard. Operating without proper paperwork. Not sure I know what that means. At times block view of my driveway. Taking over the neighborhood with cars that the Waukegan police don't police when it comes to expired city stickers or license plate tags. Okay. Do any of the commissioners have questions for city staff?
I do.
Mr. Anderson.
So can we talk about item number 20 and the landscaped islands? And is there some leeway there over the next couple of years, or are you saying we need to have that implemented in 2 years?
So the city's tree preservation and landscape ordinance has specific requirements for landscaping. Some of the island landscaping could be offset with additional landscaping elsewhere as approved by staff, as long as the overall percentage of landscaping to the lot size is met. So maybe it's not an island in the middle, maybe it's that the ends come in further, or the front of the spaces comes in further, as long as the parking spaces still meet the size requirement. So as Isabel said, we can work with the petitioner to find something that still meets the letter of the code, but is workable for them. In order to get their permit for parking, we need the phasing plan and the plan for the entire lot improvement, but we can allow it to be improved over the course of 24 months. But it can't wait until the 22nd or 23rd month to start, so there has to be some improvement going forward over that time. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just regarding that, what is the reason for the resistance on that? Is it the cost of the improvements that are being requested?
So,
Would you speak into the mic?
So, yeah, so good question. And I can't say it's so much resistance, but I guess it's
Well,
more.
it sounds like resistance.
Okay, and let me just try to add a dose of realism, because a lot of these things and all of these things, because right now we have a business that's not in operation, so where I'm looking for time is so that they can make the money to do these things. I mean, just, point blank. So but that was the only condition, like I said, in terms of the island part. But we did discuss some other landscaping at the north and the south end. So I think we can still work within these percentages to have the landscaping fit within the landscaping ordinance. So that's the only thing. I would like to, if I could, because I wasn't aware of the letter, but I did anticipate there may be something from a neighbor to have something to say. But again, I want us to all realize, and if I'm correct, I think where that neighbor is, it's in between where you have the Mo Tires shop. So in other words, if this was Washington Street and this is Edison, you have Mo Tires right here. There's this driveway that I think was being discussed, and you have, I think, 2 or 3 residential houses, and then there's a Alamo Joe and a car wash and these other things. So, and again, we're still talking Washington Street. You have Jackson on the other side. I mean, and I guess I'm speaking towards noise. I don't know if, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, especially Ms. Martinez, but if that noise can be specifically attributed to this business just based on the area. So just trying to put in a dose of realism, but again, yes, not resistant, just wanting some reasonable time to accomplish these different goals.
Mr. Cuevas, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I just bought the building in 2021. I've had a budget very hard to buy the building. Then after I bought the building, I had to recover to after spending. So then a little bit later, like a year later, I got hit with this. Then it got shut down, and then right now I could get everything you guys want me to do as long as you let me operate, so I can create revenue, so I can do a lot of this patching up, and like you said, the chipping and the windows and the paint, I could get all that done with means to get it done with. But it's just been more just like anything. I got to budget it. For example, the parking lot, that'd probably be a budget to take me about a year to budget. But if you give me 24 months, I think I could do it. You see?
Okay, and I'm not being judgmental about it. I just wanted to understand it, that's all.
I just got to budget right.
Right, that's all. And this other gentleman wanted to say something too? And would you please give your name and your affiliation to this project?
My name is Luis Garibay. I'm one of the head mechanics there.
Luis what?
Luis Garibay.
Garibay.
All right. So I just wanted to iterate on the parking where the neighbors were complaining about cars being abandoned there, and I believe it's our north side, right? Our north side. So that's where we were sticking the cars, where customers drop off the car, and then they're like, oh, we'll fix it for us. We give them an estimate, and then they never call us back, and then a few days go by, weeks, and then so it ends up looking like cars are just sitting there because the customers either A, don't have the means to fix it, or they're just letting it go completely. And not only that, we had a little problem too where other people were just leaving cars there, but we took care of that problem because now I actually set up a contract with, Lake County Towing. So they're going to put up signs for us that if cars are left there unattended, within 24 hours, they're going to get towed. So we're not going to have that issue no more. It's going to look like a junkyard because cars were being abandoned there, and we weren't really knowing because we're so busy working and we got so much stuff going on. But, to iterate with a lot of the customers, neighbors were complaining about was the parking, and we've addressed that. So if you were passed by there now, our lot looks pretty much empty. The only thing that are there is just our box trucks and, a couple cars that we're working on and that are waiting so as soon as we open back up and get back to work, So, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Bill?
Just how long has the business been not working? In other words, it's been down for how many weeks or months?
Since July, I would say mid-July.
July, okay.
Why exactly?
Oh, because there was no license, but there was no ability to get the license because the permit is necessary to be able to apply for and get this particular license. And then this process, we've been trying to put pedal to the metal to make sure we could hit all of our marks. Because it's about a 12-week or so process for the conditional use permit. So so we need that. So if I could forecast, if we're able to obtain the conditional use permit, even in the first Monday in October, then hopefully, then even after that, there's still going to be some time necessary to then apply for the business license, have an inspection, pay, and then hopefully, I would hope by the end of that week, be able to be back open.
I guess I can't understand how many years you've been in business if you didn't have a license?
There was a license and there was a conditional use permit, but then in between, because there was a period of time when he was not the owner-operator. And so, but when he purchased, there was a lot that he had to do, and it was an oversight, basically, not to have renewed.
My sister didn't renew her license. Didn't renew the license. So when I bought it, the license was old.
And before you finish, I'd like, if all of you would please sign your names on the sheet that we have there. Or I shouldn't say sign.
Print, clearly.
Print, please, because we need to be able to transcribe them into the minutes, okay?
Sure.
And did you want to say something?
Our zoning and licensing inspector, Stephen Negron, is here, and he can speak to how the issue was identified, if you'd like to hear from him, the licensing issue.
Sure, please.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Stephen Negron. I'm the licensing and zoning officer for the city. And as in the position, my duties are to find the businesses and keep them up to par with all ordinances from zoning and licensing. Mo's came into question with their license. I did an investigation and found that they did not have a current license. And that's what got them into this position today. That was July 11th. So that's when they started the process, I believe, middle July. They've been shut down since. The city did come up with a plan for them to stay open and make some type of business and allow them to apply for tire sales. So they're open as of now as tire sales only. August 9th, 2 weeks ago. This is just for information for you guys. I know you guys are concerned about conditions being met. We were called out there for a complaint that they were doing more than their permitted use at the moment, which is just tire sales. I went and did an investigation and found that they were working on 2 vehicles. We let Mo know that they can't do that. The vehicles were removed, but a citation was issued, and they do have a AA hearing on October 19th. So that's where I'm at, and that's my involvement in the situation with Mo and how we got to this point and where we are today.
Thank you very much.
And just to clarify, in case anyone needs to know, AA would be administrative adjudication?
Correct.
Well, it sounds like what you're trying to do is bring everything into compliance, so thank you for doing that. I think that's a really important step for our businesses.
And even for the retail license to be issued, there was inspection with fire and the fire department for safety, and that obviously was passed to obtain the retail license. But yeah, that was something where, again, it's 2 different processes for these licenses. So unfortunately, yeah, that's why and where we find ourselves.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
Well, I just commend the gentleman for trying to get, back on his feet and trying to do the right thing to be in compliance with the city of Waukegan. So, and it's a good thing that you have a good lawyer in John too, representing you too as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I do think, though, we want to be realistic. It has been a safety issue, and I think we really want to address that. And if, keeping the people who are illegally blocking things at that particular intersection, I mean, it's really not good, and I'm afraid somebody's going to get hurt. Kids are running across the street, and, well, Mike, it's every school in Waukegan.
I know. Yep. All right, anybody else? All right. At this point, in my papers here, I'd like to ask for a motion regarding the request zoning calendar item number 2676. Do we have a motion?
Mike, I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
How do we determine a time to allow the improvements? How do we determine that?
Well, let's ask city staff.
24 months, but start sooner.
The standard for most things is no longer than 24 months. Though some things, if they're really absolutely necessary to be done immediately, we would require those immediately. If there was something that was, a tremendous cost, or there was some other reason for a delay, especially now with supply chain issues and that kind of thing, we might extend that beyond that. But it's very rare that we issue any permission to extend anything beyond 24 months. And 24 months has kind of been the standard for parking things, where, like the signage issue, the existing temporary sign is not allowed under the sign code. It's a violation. So we would ask that they start preparing, get quotes for a new sign. We understand that they need to generate some revenue to purchase that sign, but they can still get their quotes, design the sign, that kind of thing. Go through the permitting approval, and then we can talk about what the time frame is that they can actually get the sign put on the building.
That sounds fair.
Great. Okay, do we have a motion to recommend approval or no?
Motion
by Commissioner
to approve zoning calendar 2676, conditional use permit for an automotive service at 1120 West Washington Street.
Motion to recommend approval
Motion to recommend approval.
by Commissioner Rivera.
With the conditions.
Subject to
Subject
the
to
conditions
Exactly.
requested by the city staff.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Bill. Do we have any further discussion on the motion? I would just like to make a comment. I'm glad to see that this is happening, and I know it's a tough process opening up a business, getting a business back on the ground, and getting started. There's a lot of expense and just a lot of sacrifice that you have to make to do it. But I'm glad to see it, and I'm going to vote for approval. And I wish you a lot of luck in your project, a lot of success. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Next step is?
It's a little unusual timing because of our 2-week delay in having this meeting.
Right.
So the Community Development Committee is the same date that we told you originally. It has not changed, October 3rd, Monday, October 3rd. In this room, probably 5 p.m., maybe 5:30, and that'll be set the Friday before. The time will be. Yes.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Next item, zoning calendar number 2677. This is a request, here they are, the petitioner, Stephen Hoffman, Tebow Properties LLP, Yorkies, for a conditional use permit for a nightclub, Category 1, at the location known as 4555 West York House Road. Who is going to be presenting on that? Are you the only two that are going to be speaking on this? Yes. Okay, please come up to podium. I'm going to swear you in. And please raise your right hand. Please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and as you come up to speak, we'd like you to give your name and your affiliation to the project, and also sometime during this process, please print your names clearly on the sheet there, sign-up sheet, okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So I don't know how much background you already have.
Your name, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Steve Hoffman. I'm the owner.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
This is a space within a larger facility, which is known as Encore Events. We primarily do banquets, weddings, parties, that sort of thing. There's a small cafe, which is part of the facility as well, which sits on the mid-lane golf course. This particular room was a nightclub at one point and was fitted out for that purpose some time ago. As long as I've been there, which is mostly through the period of the pandemic, that room has gone unused. We've refurnished it, upgraded it, cleaned it, made it acceptable as far as usage for fire and all the other conditions that we needed to comply with. It was not our understanding that we needed to have a conditional use permit when we began or planned on opening to the public, to the local community for events. And it turns out that our permit only allows us for private events. In other words, people that come to us, book a room, and it's their party and their party only. This use will be expanded for this space only to include events that we plan in-house for the local community. I don't remember exactly what it was we were planning at the time, but it was some variation of a program for families or karaoke, not a late night bar, but it's our understanding that this is the category that we are under or that we need to apply under in order to be able to do those types of activities. And that's what brings us here.
All right. Any of the commissioners have questions of the petitioner?
I noticed you put a security statement in there as far as people that would be there that would man the events and stuff like that. Yeah, is that something that would just be on call as needed?
So I've discussed this with Mr. Maillard, and he gave us some guidance, and we have an agreement in place with a certified security company that provides officers, and we're going by their recommendations. They haven't done an on-site inspection yet, so they wouldn't give us a complete contract until they're able to complete that. But we anticipate for the type of events that would warrant it, later hours and so forth, to have at least 2 officers on duty, one at the entrance and one within the room.
And there was a statement that one of them should be armed?
That was in the proposal. It was a recommendation only.
Can you explain to me, I'm sorry, because I am confused about night, you're not trying to be a nightclub, or you are? Or some of this is part of our language for our zoning?
That's correct.
Correct. So
Please state your name and your affiliation to the project.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my name is Stephanie Ibarando. I'm the sales and event coordinator there. And so that is our space inside. What our plan was is to have karaoke nights, bands coming in, and music. So it's not necessarily a nightclub. If we have a DJ, I don't know if that's considered a nightclub, but we plan on doing day events, like weekly events, trivia up there, maybe the bingo we could have in there, and then karaoke and bands. So if we don't have a band, we could use a DJ in there. I know that some people speak of noise, but we already have events in that space that are rented from us, and also in the other banquet rooms. So those, I don't think it would be any louder than what we already have.
But, okay, so if I wanted to rent a banquet room, I could do that. I could serve. I could have food served. I could have alcohol served, and I could have a DJ or a party of some sort.
Yes.
Okay, that's separate. What you're doing is having a party for the public,
Correct.
essentially.
Correct.
And are you serving alcohol?
Yes.
Okay, so there's
We
a
have
bar.
bars. We have a bar.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you may or may not charge cover to go into that party.
Right. I think we were just going with the guidance of the city of what we should do with that.
Okay. If you charge cover nightclub? No?
Good.
Good evening, Commissioners. This Thomas Maillard with Planning and Zoning. Thank you as always. As has been noted, the code as pertains to public events that are open to the public, and the way that our zoning ordinance classifies them, with a space that has a capacity over 150 people, whether or not the intention is a nightclub operation, by our zoning ordinance, it automatically categorizes them into the classification nightclub. Whether or not they're charging a cover, whether or not they're serving liquor, whether or not there is entertainment at the site. So not just DJ, live music, but, comedy acts. All of those things fall under our current definition of nightclub, and then the number of individuals in the space as determined by fire code stipulates that then this falls under specifically category 1, which comes to us. Under 150 people goes to an alternate development review board for internal staff review and obviously public feedback.
Thank you.
Are you having casino nights or gambling of any kind, or are there slot machines or anything like that planned?
No, that's not part of it.
I didn't see it here, but I wanted to check.
That is not a monetary win. We give tickets for free desserts and that sort of thing at our bingo.
Mr. Bill.
So, I believe the hotel turned into the retirement community, right? Did that happen?
Yes, I think they're still in the construction phase, but they're close to finish.
Happening.
So that's something, it sounds like the activity you're talking about, karaoke, and that might
Be compatible.
beneficial for those folks too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that sort of maybe a motivation, or that would be a?
I'm not sure as a motivation, but we've talked with the owner time and again, and we talk about ways of integrating our two businesses because we think there's a lot of potential. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other comments or questions for the petitioners? Thank you.
Okay.
They certainly can. Did you have a question?
Couple of them, if I may.
Okay, there is a, yes, please, well, he's an officer of the court. I'm not going to.
I'm just listening. So yes, my name is John Jonum. I live at 2855 North Southern Hills Drive at Wadsworth in the mid-lane, Linkshead mid-lane community. So I wasn't aware of this, but I did have a couple questions while I'm here. So one of them is kind of going along with what you're saying, Commissioner Bill, about the assisted living proposal that's planned there. I don't know if nightclub and assisted living senior citizens, if that necessarily goes together. I have a question about when they're talking about, these night hours, how late are they thinking? Are they familiar with how things were when the Cove was there? Because when the Cove was there, I mean, a lot of calls for Waukegan police to be out there. A lot of situations happened. Overserved people. There was one I knew who drove off the road and passenger in his car, this is on York House, leaving from the Cove and left the roadway, and the passenger in the back had a traumatic brain injury and then died. And I guess my other question is, isn't some of these things going on already? I just know because I play golf, so go in the club, I saw like a band set up, so I was just like, oh, they have music, and I didn't know if some of that was already there, or if that was maybe just part of the bar, or are they talking about taking that to another location? So those are kind of my four questions. I don't see where it fits with assisted living. That's one. Two, is some of this going on already? Three, how is this, would this differentiate from when the Cove was there, and what type of hours specifically are we talking? Because it's, it's a residential community. I mean, we were, there's some grumbling because the place where the assisted living is supposed to be, that used to be the hotel, is now this under construction, very slow moving thing. It doesn't look attractive when you see it. And, and then there were questions about the sale of the golf course, and I think that's an ongoing question. So I'm just saying that these are the type of things. I was at the ward meeting that Alderman Florian held at McCall School last week, and so these are some of the things that were being discussed. So I know that's a lot of questions at once.
I'm not sure who your questions are being addressed to, but I guess.
Oh, I'm addressing the questions to them, but I'm speaking in the microphone.
Yeah, totally fine.
Stay tuned, because I'm not going to remember all four of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So what type of hours are you talking about?
Well, if I can start with the first question, this use that we're considering here, this space is used all the time in the same way that it would be used with a conditional permit by private parties. The people that book weddings sometimes book this space either as their primary space or for an after-party space. It is deep within our facility, so you can't hear anything that's going on, to my knowledge, from that space, no matter how much noise there is. At the exterior, it is unrecognizable, undetectable from any portion of the assisted living facility. We are deep in the back near the golf course. They are up in the front. And of course, as I said, the owner and management and ourselves have worked together. They support what we're doing. They have no objection whatsoever. And if anyone was going to be affected by this use, they would be the primary people. And I think they would have been here tonight to make that case, but I just don't think that's the case. As far as the type of activities and what kind of crowds we attract, you know, our primary business is formal affairs where people spend a lot of money to ensure that they have a decent space to hold their affair in. And it would be stupid on our part to have something that contradicts that in a space that's adjacent to another space that might be rented simultaneously, and have some, you know, just outrageous behavior while other people are having this once-in-a-lifetime affair. That's not our intention, and we don't expect to let that happen.
Timing?
Yep.
Yeah. Timing, all of our events right now end at midnight, so we wouldn't go beyond that. I don't know what time the Cove closed. I believe it was around 2 or so, but that was before our time there. So everything currently ends at midnight, so that would be the same. And there was another one, I think.
So, yeah, isn't some of what you're talking about already happening there?
It is. It does happen in the cafe space that we have down by the golf course, which is licensed as a restaurant and for which these types of activities are permitted. That's the only place that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you run the Cove?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just
No,
checking.
He just bought this April 1st, 2020, right? In the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Still standing.
To make sure that.
Yeah.
Was that all the questions?
No, I have a question.
Or no, I mean
Who owns the property now?
I can answer that. Tebow Property that you have listed there is the owner.
Who owns Mid Lane?
What's Carrie's last name?
Is that Golf Visions?
Carrie Glenner. That's correct.
Mr. Jonah, were all of your questions answered?
Yeah, mostly. I think the part, but I guess my question still is, when we think about, or at least when I think about assisted living, I'm thinking about quiet, serene, and seniors, okay?
Not a nightclub.
And yeah, but then at the same time too, and I understand what the gentleman is saying, but when he said he spoke to the owner, I mean, obviously they're both either new or they're trying to start their respective businesses, and so, you know, you're going to try to go along to get along. So I mean, that owner, we have questions, or there were many, many questions for him at the ward meeting. Maybe it might be a good thing if and I'm sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Hoffman.
Mr. Hoffman, yes, it's just written right here. If Mr. Hoffman, maybe he came to the ward meeting, because we had about 70 people at the ward meeting, and you know, people are interested. So, I mean, that might be a good opportunity at least to get a better flavor, not just what I think, but just what the neighborhood thinks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from public? Okay. Anybody else? Just you. Okay, come out to the podium, please. Speak into the microphone, please. And make sure you sign your name before you finish, okay?
My name is Paya Davidson. I also live in the Mid-Lane Club. And I have a few questions.
I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
I have questions. We have, like he said, we have a very quiet neighborhood. It's a residential neighborhood, lots of families. There's one thing to bring to bring the weddings and private events into our neighborhood, but to bring the public, what kind of crime is that going to bring with it, potentially? The Cove sounds like a nightmare for the neighborhood. Are we going to get that back if you're going to bring drinking and all of these events, just anybody who wants to come? What's that going to do to our neighborhood? The second thing is, we're going to have all this influx of people coming to go to these events. What are they going to do about the lot? That lot has grass growing through cracks. It is very unpleasing to look at, and it hasn't been fixed in as long as I've been living there, which is almost 10 years now. So I recognize that they're new, but what are they going to do to improve this, not just to improve their bottom line? How are they going to improve our neighborhood if they're going to do this and not have crime?
Thank you very much. Do you want to respond to that?
I would like to, yeah. I don't disagree. I think our sentiments are exactly the same. Because there was a business in this space a decade ago, I don't even know how long, and goes back way before that, shouldn't hamper a future tenant or owner of that space from doing what they can do. We have an established business there that we feel we run professionally and respectfully of our guests, people that are hosting parties. And as I said before, it would be utterly foolish for us to court this sort of activity that apparently was going on way before I arrived. We don't want that. And it's unfortunate that we have to refer to this as a nightclub. That's not our intention. We have one of the things that we were planning for that space next month was Halloween events for people in the neighborhood. And that's pretty wholesome. And so it's not, we're not going to be open 7 nights a week. It's not going to be late hours. Not going to be people hanging out in the parking lot. It's going to be policed for events where we feel it's appropriate and necessary. So I understand that concern. If I was living next door, I would have that same concern. But that's just simply not our intention. As far as the parking lot, there's 3 different owners who cooperatively are responsible, well, not for the maintenance, but for the upkeep of those lots. We do the best that we can, but we have an agreement with Mid-Lane or Mid-Lane's tenant to maintain the property. And if it's in, if the grass is overgrown, whatever, and we get notified of it, we simply take care of it rather than waiting for them to come and do it, because we need to try to look as presentable as possible. The front portion is all on the owner up front, who, by the way, was also the owner of the hotel that was there prior. He's doing this conversion. So as to his limited experience and a new businessman, that's not the case. He's very seasoned in this space, and I think his intentions are good and in favor of his future residents, and he doesn't see ours plans as any sort of a threat. So,
could I ask Mr. Hoffman, what is your job there?
So I basically act as an owner and an overseer. She is, Stephanie is the site manager, but I would be the general manager.
Okay, who's going to be responsible?
For this particular space and activity?
The whole thing.
Well, I am.
Well, I've been at weddings and class reunions there and was frightened to walk to my car because your previous tenant ran a very disturbing nightclub type business.
That was before us.
How long?
Before you.
Yeah.
I want to know who's responsible.
I couldn't even identify who the owner was. There was an interim owner who had the space for about 5 years, and That's Wedgwood Weddings. So I can't even speak to their experience. But I'm not sure how that's relevant to us because it's a parking lot, and I'm not sure, just because.
Parking lot?
Isn't that what you're referring to? Or the whole, you said you were afraid to walk to your car and so forth.
Yeah. Because there was plenty going on in the parking lot.
Okay.
I'm asking you who's responsible.
I get that. Okay, so we are, of course, if we're talking about the space that is our parking space. I don't know what happened. I don't expect that there'll be seniors out in the front that are hanging around the parking lot at night, but we intend to police that and supervise that. We don't expect that sort of activity and not planning for it.
Well, I think some of your neighbors are very concerned, and probably, I'm not sure how to move forward. To me, if it's a part of the building and it's an event you plan to have it's in the building, right?
Yes.
Why would you need a separate zoning?
Yeah. We have the Rose Ballroom that seats 150. Using the dance floor would be 198. Yorkie's has a capacity of 200. The Crystal Room has a capacity of 120. And our Willow Ballroom is 350. So at a certain time, if everything is good, we would have a lot of people there. But, we kind of, it's an even flow of events. And so it's usually like a Friday and a Saturday in general that we have events there. So the parking lot is well lit as well. So we always have cars there, usually Fridays and Saturdays at least, and events going on during the week, and the restaurant parking as well. So this is just a small room in the middle. It's facing the golf course, and so we had to get it so we could have our own personal events, is what we were told.
Can I ask for some clarification? Planning and Zoning Department has received a conditional use permit application from Stephen Hoffman, Tebow Properties, LLLP, Yorkie's, Encore Events. What are all these entities? Who owns them? Who do you represent? Who's going to be responsible? Who's going to be doing what?
Tebow Properties is the owner of the property. Encore Events is the name of our general facility. Yorkie's is simply a name for this particular room.
So these are not legal entities, Yorkie's or?
Encore Events is a corporation.
And what is Tebow Properties?
They're the owners.
Owners of what?
Of the building that we're in. We're the tenant.
Tebow Properties is the owner of the building.
Correct.
Okay, and who is Steve Hoffman?
That's me.
I know, but who is he? What does he own? What is the? I mean, I'm trying to understand the legal. I don't know, associations, affiliations here.
Right. I'm a director and officer of the corporation, Encore Events,
Okay.
which is the tenant, and Tebow Properties is the landlord.
The legal entity that's going to be running these businesses is whom?
Encore Events.
Okay.
And you already have licenses to run the other rooms?
Yes,
You're just asking for this particular room?
that's correct.
And you're not planning on programming it 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till midnight?
Absolutely not.
How much are you planning on programming it?
So I'm going to say probably 2 to 3 nights, evenings per week
A week,
at most.
ending at,
Depending on the events, I'd say as early as 8 o'clock at night and as late as between 10 and 12 at the latest.
all right, thank Thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from
I have a question.
commissioners?
So how can we address the parking lot issue in terms of the pavement? And how can we address that without the owner being here, listening to the concerns of the lady that was up here talking about the way it looked? How can we address that?
I guess I'd have to have somebody come out and give us an idea of what work needs to be done in terms of patchwork or simply, the weeds or whatever the situation is. I don't know, but I'm happy to do that.
Because we have an ordinance.
Of course.
How these parking lots should look like.
Understood.
When they start getting bad, that's when, our city inspector will go out there and look at it and address that issue.
Of course. And that would be my responsibility.
All right.
Can I say something? I know that the front part is tore up, and that is the part for the senior living. And I think that they, if I'm not mistaken, they are planning to fix their side when all of their construction is done, because I don't think they wanted to fix it and then get it tore up again. So there are like potholes on the front side that's facing York House, and that's not like our side. We don't use that side to park. So I believe that, I think I heard that they were going to fix that after their construction.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
I agree with your comment that you should not be penalized for what previously happened. But obviously, this was a problem for the community who lives there, for the city of Waukegan. There were many issues, and clearly we don't want to see a repeat. And I think that's what all of these questions and concerns are about, and I am assuming you're well aware of those concerns. I think in looking at the staff recommendations, a review every 90 days, the first year of operation, and then we'll see how it goes, is really, really going to be important. And I think this is something that I'm hoping the licensing department will take to heart as well. Because we have some very passionate objections here. And clearly, you've been at a meeting of residents who had issues. I'm sure you've heard all those. So, I think the proof is going to be on you.
Understood. But let me say this. I did not have any idea that there were objections. We sent out the notices as required. What did we do? We sent postcards to all of the people in the immediate area and invited them to the facility to see it and to see what our plans were. I think two
showed up.
Two people showed up. To hear that there was a meeting, a ward meeting, and nobody invited us, because we want to hear. We don't want to be anybody's enemy in this community. That's just stupid, and we'd love to be a part of that. And I'd go so far as to say we would welcome a committee of neighbors in Mid-Lane to help us forge a program that's going to be compatible with their homestead and suitable for their children to be around. I don't want anything but that, so we welcome that.
Alderman Florian, please come forward. And I just want to acknowledge Alderman Florian because she's at all of our planning and zoning meetings. She's the only alderman that comes to our meetings, and we're always happy to have you here. And I'm just glad to see that you have this passion for Waukegan and for your community. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm sure you want to swear me
Yes,
in.
I do. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
So I live in the community. I'm a neighbor of John's, so this is my community. So I'm partly up here as Alderman Florian and partly up here as Lynn Florian, who lives in the neighborhood, right? I knew this was coming up, and I know all of the issues, we've talked about with Cove and other things. I'm particularly concerned about the assisted living because although they make it sound like it's very far apart, it's on the same property. I mean, it's the front and back, right? So it's right there. They already have slot machines that I wasn't happy about them getting, but I couldn't keep that from happening. So anyway, those are on the property. So I had reached out to the police chief a couple weeks ago when I first heard about this, and the slot machines actually, and asked his opinion. And I just messaged him and asked if I could speak about it because he had said he wasn't so concerned about the slot machines, but he was concerned about the nightclub being there. So I just wanted to say he allowed me to quote him on that the police chief, and he doesn't live in our exact neighborhood, but he lives very close. So he has concerned about a nightclub operating. Now, I know they say they're not doing a nightclub, but once they get this permit, I don't know what prevents them from operating like a nightclub, you know? And then the man who owns the assisted living facility, he said he had talked to him and he was 100% in favor of this. So I sent him a message and I said, "You're 100% in favor of this? I'm kind of surprised." I'll read you his message. "I have never spoken with the ownership at Encore directly about this, nor have any details been provided to me. I have been in touch with Lisa, who was the previous manager. I am for activities at Encore that are good for the neighbors, our seniors, the community, and the community at large. Lisa had mentioned events during the daytime, such as bingo and a mystery night, which I thought sounded reasonable. However, I did state to her that a nightclub would be seen as disruptive given what previously took place." So I just wanted you to be aware of these statements that were out there. And if any of you have any questions for me, I would be glad to answer them. Okay, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. And I would like to read these two letters of objection. One is kind of long, but I think it's worth reading. If there were 10 letters, I probably wouldn't read it, but there are only two. The first one says, this is from Jesus Herena and Kim Herena. They are objecting to this request. They live at 3325 Monterey Lane. It says, "We do not support or agree with this nightclub because," I can't make out this one word, "request. This is a residential area with families that surround their business. Most of these families have school-age children and moved to this community because of how quiet it was. With the, what's that word? Something of a license of a nightclub, we do not want to deal with loud music, excessive traffic at night, violence, and everything else that comes with having a nightclub. This is a residential area, not a business district." Second letter from Kristen and Jody Luca at 3304 Monterey Lane. They are objecting. This location is in the same building as a senior living facility, therefore jeopardizing the health and welfare of a vulnerable community. That was page 1. To the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Waukegan. I am writing as a concerned resident of Mid Lane, objecting to the conditional use permit application from Stephen Hoffman and Tebow Properties LLLP for a nightclub at 4555 West York House Road, zoning calendar number 2677. Currently, this location is home to a golf course, rentable event space, a restaurant with newly added slot machines, and soon to be a residential location for senior citizens. Adding a nightclub of any sort is not a compatible use of this location. A nightclub yet again introduces a use that once failed at this location due to high crime activity. This is a former location of the Cove. Per recent conversation with the current general manager, the intention of this location is to attract other types of people than before. How can the City of Waukegan ensure the safety and well-being of the neighboring businesses and vulnerable residents? As an event location serving alcohol and food, each registered event is under contract and has personally invited the attendees. This practice allows for ownership and responsibility of each event. Although often attendees are overserved and wandering the golf course near waterways without security and attendance, attendees are connected to the host, often leading to an expected decorum, whereas the attendees have been personally invited. A nightclub is open to the public with no individual accountability. When this location was previously the Cove, it was connected to a hotel. Hotels often have nightclubs, and that is a reasonable expectation. However, with the city's approval, that hotel is currently under construction, transitioning to senior housing. A nightclub in the same building as senior citizens opens the doors to an already vulnerable community being subject to nightly dangerous activity. A golf course, restaurant, and event space is reasonable uses in conjunction to a senior living facility, not a nightclub. As with any planning and zoning, when granting a use permit, one must consider all the possibilities for that zoning. Today, the petitioner may be asking for a nightclub not mirroring the Cove, but any type of nightclub would then become an allowable use if this conditional use permit is granted. In 2021, we went to Tavern and Table for dinner, also owned and managed by the petitioner. The environment was welcoming, and we stayed well beyond closing. We were asked to leave and gladly moved our conversation outside. The employees proceeded to close up for the evening. Unbeknownst to one employee, another went to the restroom. The first employee locked up and left. Fortunately, we were still outside and could hear someone banging on a window. It was a second employee. He was stuck inside without functional fire safety exits to evacuate the building and did not have an available phone to call for help. Fortunately, we were there to call 911. The fire department was dispatched and attempted to utilize the available Knox box keys. None of the Knox box keys worked for the immediate door. One key did work for a door adjacent to Tavern and Table. This whole scenario presents a significant fire hazard and shows a lack of responsibility by the petitioner for the nightclub. I do not believe a nightclub at this location compatible with current zoning practices in this area. The 2020 Waukegan Comprehensive Plan makes it evident that the city is looking for forward progress. Reissuing a nightclub permit to this location would be going backwards almost 10 years. The exact location has a history of increased crime rates and violence as a previous nightclub. This activity jeopardizes the health and safety of the contiguous, vulnerable population, as well as the multiple family-centric neighborhoods surrounding it. I ask you to vote no to this permit request. Thank you, Jody Luca. Would you like to?
So I have to say that I think the word nightclub scares a lot of people. It's not our intention to have people waiting outside and going to a nightclub in the city. That's not the intent that we are planning. We're planning a karaoke night. We're planning bands in that space, small bands, because it's not a very big venue. It can only hold 200 with the balconies. So we can't have a capacity over 200 in there anyway. I don't know about who got locked in the restaurant, but I know that there's a lot of doors that you can exit. So if it was an employee, then there's multiple exits. So I think that everyone is scared about a nightclub, and that's just not what we're planning on doing. We don't want to attract the wrong crowd. We want to have bands in there that are, 60s, 70s, 80s bands, that sort of thing, country night. So it's not like a house music kind of DJ kind of thing that we want to do anyway.
I'm not sure where else to go with this. I can speak to our good intentions, but I feel a little blindsided. Was not aware of any opposition. I think it will be invisible. With the risk of repeating myself, this is one room amidst three others that do similar types of events. All we were looking for when we started this was an expansion to have events that involve community and do not have to be individually hosted. I would disagree that doing that sort of thing is any more risky or less responsible than when a private party rents the room and feels like they own it for those hours, and you have to govern the behavior of their guests. You have to limit the amount of drinks that you serve to any individual because the people hosting the party are not experienced or well positioned to do that sort of thing. I don't think this presents even the slightest increase of risk, of harm, or of depredation of the neighborhood. We're baffled by it. And the first time that we heard that this comes under a nightclub classification surprised us because that's not it. And I believe we asked, is there some other way we can do this without calling it or being grouped with nightclubs? That feels inappropriate. All we want to do is host activities that we self-sponsor rather than having private parties exclusively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I don't have a question for them. I have a question for city staff.
Okay,
so-
well, they'll be making their.
Yeah.
Before we move on to city staff, is there anybody else here who would like to speak out in support or opposition or even neutral to this request? No? All right, then I'd like to ask city staff for their recommendation.
Good evening, Commissioners, and good evening to the public. Again, my name is Thomas Maylard, presenting our staff report. So I want to state a couple, first of all, I will highlight a couple of conditions that I want to bring to your attention, but I also want to clarify some of the statements that have been made to make sure we set the record straight. For clarification, Mr. Hoffman, while you were not present at some of the meetings with us as we reviewed your initial proposal, we did highlight to your staff, to your team, regarding the history of the cove. So I would not say that is accurate to say that we have not highlighted this concern. From day one, we're obviously aware that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, under a different operation, there is a history which the residents are aware of, and we as staff, we as a community are aware of, and obviously that is colored, I think, whether fairly or unfairly, this topic today. But this has been something that has been front and center for transparency. There is an existing liquor license at this site. This is also, as has been stated, this is, our understanding, a banquet space that is being converted to what we believe is a similar use. The most important and the most differentiating being the public aspect. And does that change the character of the operation of the space? Certainly, we've been discussing that quite a bit, and I won't go deeper into that. We are required to evaluate as staff this application by the information that has been provided. And from day one, obviously, the team here has, the Encore Tebow, Mr. Hoffman team has highlighted that they found that nightclub is not an accurate description of it. The city staff is in the process of updating our ordinances, as you're aware. One of the categories that we are very uncomfortable with the current description as encompassing is the nightclub definition. I think we are challenged by lumping things into the nightclub category, and I would refer us to our history with the Crazy Place downtown and how we, that was the place on 208 North Genesee, that we ended up passing a text amendment for a multi-purpose entertainment venue because we had an applicant that had highlighted that nightclub is not the correct category. So this is something that has been highlighted, both enforcement and categorization of liquor establishments, banquet establishments, establishments with performance entertainers, DJs, that we need to better define for this council, or for this commission as well as the council, what entails that. And certainly one of the case in points would be the hours of operation. A closure by 8, a closure by 10 is a little bit of a different dynamic than we would expect to see with a nightclub. That said, police, as part of our process, are contacted and are asked for their feedback on any sort of quote-unquote nightclub. Police were contacted, and they have offered no changes to the security plan that has been provided. So the news of the chief that is news to us. We spoke with them and have it noted that they did not provide feedback on the security plan. They did request a security plan, which was attached, obviously, the mention of the security guards, an armed officer for events that serve. And if that's going to be tweaked further, we have put a condition in here specifically highlighting that any changes to the security plan must be, major changes must be notified, or we must be notified of those. And again, that is based on obviously our knowledge of the space, the history, and the residents' history. Second, additionally, the owner of the property that is in question, Tebow, is different from the senior living ownership. These are multiple pins. When you look on the county GIS map, you'll even note that the lines are quite jagged in the parking lots. And certainly, as the dynamic was discussed related to the parking, the state of code enforcement, weeds, just based on the feedback of the community today, certainly we will be working with code enforcement to assess it this week, or obviously prior to any decisions of council should it move to that. And we would obviously recommend additional conditions if we find it to be in an unsatisfactory state. In terms of doors in not proper fire, building code, access, entrance from the space, and I know that was not necessarily the Yorkies space per se, but the larger space that Encore is in charge of. As part of our licensing process, the fire marshal as well as the building commissioner do an inspection. Anything that is non-compliant with building code must be remedied. Things such as sprinkling, which I believe it is sprinkled right already. Yep. So obviously they will be doing that enforcement and that inspection as part of this. And then as an additional note, understanding the surrounding properties, but the parcels of this larger complex are zoned B3 commercial zoning. I do want to highlight just a couple of points that additionally we wanted to draw attention to. So once again, the security plans, because of obviously the request of police, we have requested that. I know they attached that. And again, if there are things that are found to be unsatisfactory, we are of course willing to work with the applicant. As staff, we obviously appreciate your guidance. Certainly it's the same question of noise, music. While it may be interior to the building, that is, of course, not going to be acceptable to impede or be a nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood. And noise may not just be, you know, that from inside, but noisy, unruly tenants or customers that are in the parking lots. If there is some sort of environment that is created because of this operation, that is obviously under the purview of the city to additionally enforce. Alcohol. We wanted to identify that because there was a notation of kids events, family events, things that are operating prior to evenings, we wanted to, again, draw attention to the fact that karting, making sure that serving of alcohol to those in attendance must be compliant with law. If there are children, if there are teenagers, again, we are, this is a no-nonsense approach. We're not going to be okay with that. And then obviously to your point about the 90 days review, obviously is something that we continue to be pushing for boilerplate with Stevens' addition, with obviously Tyler's addition. That continues to be a focus that we want to see, not just good behavior when any applicant is in front of the commission and the council or for the first month, but throughout. So we want to, obviously that has been the expectation and the standard that we are going to demand of applicants.
There's another category here that seems more appropriate, multi-purpose entertainment establishment. Is there some reason why this would not fit into that category?
The multi-purpose entertainment establishment is the aforementioned Crazy Place category, which is specifically, as of this time, only exist within the downtown B4 district.
Only B4, and this is B3?
And this is B3 district. Yes, sir. Yes, so that would require a text amendment to expand that definition to here.
Would expanding and doing a text amendment alleviate some of the problems with the definition? Because what I hear Mr. Hoffman saying is this is an event space, but by virtue of the size, and it is automatically becoming a nightclub. And everyone's got issues with it becoming a nightclub. Sure. I don't think people have issues with event space. But once we give you a conditional use permit, then you have nightclub. You have, and you can operate it as a nightclub, and that's a concern to me. We don't want, I mean, I hear from everyone, we don't want a nightclub there. But it's a definition, I think. Am I correct?
And, you know, you are correct that the current nightclub definition is not serving the purpose that we all want, which is not only it's not capturing those sites that are currently operating in a, you know, a bar that brings a DJ with a following can quickly turn into a nightclub, right? So, and yet in this case, an operation, if it's a kids event prior to, you know, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not necessarily indicative of a nightclub. So this is a less than accurate, or not the most accurate catch-all for this. It is the vehicle that we currently had, and it is something that, again, we have identified along with a couple of other ones. I know we've discussed auto service and refining those, refining drive-throughs, and there are a few other text amendments that we intend to bring to you all very shortly, but this is certainly something that we are open to.
I think what everybody's concerned about is not so much what they're proposing to do, but just the fact that this blanket category would allow this business to transition or to degenerate into something that we don't want to see there, but they'd be legally able to do it by virtue of the definition.
In one of the conditions that we could, again, we follow the guidance of this room and obviously the mayor and the council, the alderman. One of the conditions that we could additionally build into here is the time condition. So that might be a stopgap. Obviously, a text amendment to this would that get us from a timeline?
Would the city be amenable to a text amendment?
Sorry.
And what is the process and how long does it take? Because I know you have time frame that you're operating under.
So the text amendment, we would not have time to publish for the October meeting, so we could have something on the November agenda. What's our cutoff for October? Do we still have time? Yeah, so but we can't meet the Monday deadline for the Spanish publication, right?
Can I ask the petitioner, well, you need to come up to the mic. What is your time frame for this? I'm sorry, Noel.
I guess we're willing to do whatever it takes, but I've had 2 years of being on hold with our business, up and downs, cancellations, all due to the pandemic. And, you know, we'd like to activate our business. We'd like to be doing these activities as we approach the holiday season and beyond. So, you know, expediting it would be wonderful, but if we're not going to be able to accomplish that and it takes something else, then we're willing to do that if that's necessary.
Can I say something too? Our other rooms, I plan weddings every single day, birthday parties, anniversary parties. We end everything at midnight. So all of these rooms are connected, and so to have it different from the other just feels strange. And also, I'd like to ask if there has been any complaints about noise currently, because when we have events, we have DJs in the other rooms already every weekend. So whether it's in the Rose, and then you walk up the stairs and there's Yorkies, and then you go around the corner and there's the Willow, we have DJs in those other rooms already. So I don't know when the last noise complaint was made, but this is just another room in the center of those rooms.
So I wouldn't know about noise complaints. Those wouldn't come to our department. We'd have to request that call list from the police department and wait for them to provide it for us. So a path that I can see going forward is if the petitioner was willing to have this held over rather than have you vote on it, this could remain on the agenda. We can get a text amendment on the agenda I think we've missed the publication deadline for the October meeting because we have the required 15-day publication notice, and we, under the new statute that took effect January of this year, we need to publish in both English and Spanish. The local Spanish language paper is once a week, so we have to meet their deadline to meet their once a week publication, where the New Sun, they publish every day, so we have much more leeway with them.
Unless we were to have a late October meeting.
October and November,
I believe we've missed for October unless we were to have a later meeting in October.
As we did this month.
Right.
Well, this is a later meeting.
This is a later meeting too, yes. So as the chairman said, if the commission was willing to push the meeting later, we could determine when we could publish, so when we could have a meeting. And have a text amendment on that agenda, hold this until the same night, hear the text amendment first, and if that then is approved, then we could modify this conditional use permit application to be for the
Okay, if the text amendment is approved, but that still has to go to city council.
Yes. But then we would organize the agenda so that the text amendment this would have to go to city council too. So they would hold it here at the commission voluntarily, or one of you could make a motion to hold it over. Then we could have the text amendment placed first on the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. And Attorney Martinez, if I'm saying anything incorrectly, please jump in and correct me immediately if you would. We could have the text amendment placed on the agenda first, then have this conditional use permit modified to reflect the language, to be a conditional use permit for the, whatever the definition says exactly, event space in the B3 zoning district. And then you could vote on that, and then they would both go to city council at the same time as well.
Mr. Chairman, I move we hold it over until October 26th.
What is October 26th?
It's a Thursday night. That's later than our regular meeting on the 13th.
That's the last.
Okay, 26th is a Wednesday. It would be the 27th. I'll also have to check if this room is available and that kind of thing. So if we could make the motion to postpone the October meeting and hold this over until a postponed October meeting, and then we'll have to get back to you with the date that we can meet the publication deadlines and have the room available.
Amenable to this?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Griffin to hold this over. Is that an appropriate way to say it? Hold it over?
Hold it over.
Hold it over until the October, we're going to have two motions, actually. One is going to be to hold it over to the October meeting, and then the second motion is going to be to have a late October meeting.
Is that
Does
your
that make
motion?
sense? That should be two motions, right?
Two separate motions? So there's a motion on the floor right now.
There's a motion on the floor.
And so right now, we have to deal with the motion on the floor. It's related, so it doesn't have to be two separate motions.
We can do it all in one motion.
Yeah, provided that, everyone's feels like they're going to be voting the same way as to the two related issues. The continuance of this matter and the date being changed for the next meeting. And so if there's a consensus, and if that is the mover's will to have her motion amended in that way, and the seconder's desire to have it that way, then we can proceed that way.
I'll amend that to
Okay.
the date set by the Planning and Zoning Department.
Okay, so you would like to make a motion to hold this item over and to continue it to the October meeting.
Designated by...
And you are also including in this motion that the October meeting be held at a later date in the month on a date that's to be determined by city staff. Of course, we'd have to poll all the commissioners to make, I'm just commenting, that's not part of the motion. We'd have to poll all the commissioners to make sure that they're all agreeable to whatever date is chosen. But that this would be brought up at that meeting at the date that we would hold the October meeting at a later date. change the wording a little bit, please. So I rambled a little bit, but is that basically what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And the secondary, you're in agreement with that? Okay.
Okay. 2 items, holding it over and considering it at the October meeting, and secondly, holding the October meeting at a later date. Okay, to simplify it? All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
No,
Can I just say something else?
Yes.
For that meeting, can we have the records of current noise complaints? Because I'm unaware that we've had any with the current, things that we've had going on, so I don't think it would change.
I would just suggest that you talk with city staff and just ask them if they can give you that information.
Okay.
Okay, are you able to get that information for?
You can request it, or they can file a Freedom of Information Act request. So the text amendment would just add, Thomas, what exactly is the name of that use? Do you recall? Multipurpose facility, establishment, yes. So multipurpose entertainment establishment is a defined use that's currently allowed only in the B4 zoning district. So we would be adding that as a conditional use in the B3 zoning district. It's a conditional use in the B4. B4 is the central part of downtown, B5 is the outer part of downtown. B3 are the commercial areas that are like higher traffic areas generally, and then B1 and B2 are more neighborhood commercial. So this would basically duplicate what B4 says about multi-purpose entertainment establishment, add it to the B3 as a conditional use. So the conditional use permit would still be required. And so we would just modify this CUP request to be, instead of for a Category 1 nightclub, to be for a multipurpose entertainment establishment. B3, general commercial.
And I just,
Would you come to the mic, please?
All right, so my question is, if you do the text amendment for the B3, so does that make every other B3? In other words, could now this expand, or is it just for this room and this thing, or is it let's say, for example, another B3 now would have that same capacity? That's the question.
This would be universally applied across all B3 zoning districts. It would be a conditional use, so anybody wanting that designation would have to apply for a conditional use permit. But it would only be available in the B3 and B4
So it wouldn't be universally
districts.
granted, it has to be approved.
Right, it wouldn't be a permitted use, so you could not just get a business license for it. You would still need to get the conditional use permit through this board and the city council's approval.
Okay, any further discussion on, I'm sorry. go ahead.
if I could just make a point. So I want to make sure we all know what we're kind of suggesting here. I'm going to read the nightclub Category 1 definition, and then I'm going to read the multipurpose entertainment establishment definition, just so that we have some clarity as to the actual name, because what I don't want is for us to kind of go down this rabbit hole to make a major change when really it's just the name. So, okay, I'll begin. The nightclub Category 1 is a business establishment whose principal use is the provision of pre-recorded or live music or other entertainment, having an occupancy load as established by the Waukegan Fire Department of more than 150 persons. A Category 1 nightclub may or may not have a liquor license, may charge a covered charge for entry by patrons. A Category 1 nightclub may provide a dance floor stage and may or may not provide seating for the majority of patrons. Food and beverages may be offered for sale as an ancillary use. Special conditions for the operation of a Category 1 shall be as set forth in Sections 8.3-11, 8.4-10, and 8.5-9 of the Waukegan zoning ordinance. A Category 1 nightclub shall not include an adult entertainment establishment. That's a nightclub. Multi-purpose entertainment establishment is an establishment that operates as a multi-purpose facility which may include broadcast and multimedia uses, as well as periodic events, which events may be private or open to the general public, may be free or ticketed, may include live or recorded entertainment, may include the provision of food for on-site consumption, and may or may not include the service of alcoholic beverages pursuant to a properly issued local liquor license. And so I just want to make sure, as this motion is on the table, that we are making the motion and that we're making these changes, and not just because we don't like what nightclub sounds like. So if there was something in the description of a nightclub that you didn't like that is in the multi-purpose entertainment establishment that you're okay with, then that's that. If they sounded the same, then I would say that you continue to kind of deliberate on this.
I like in the multi-purpose entertainment establishment, the may or may not serve alcohol, may or may not be ticketed, may or may not have live entertainment. I felt like it was a lot more open with the idea that events are periodic versus every day of the week, set hours. And to me, that sounds more like what they're talking about than what could be in a Category 1 nightclub. That's how I read that. So to me, I think the description fits their business model as they've described it.
Alderman, please.
Okay.
This is a question for Marcus. So the 150 people is the big difference, right? So a nightclub, you can have more than 150. The entertainment, whatever, you can have less than 150. And they said their room is 200.
So, Staff Thomas Noel, correct me if I'm wrong. Multi-purpose doesn't have a ceiling or a floor when it comes to occupancy. Is that correct?
Correct.
So conceivably, under multi-purpose, it doesn't have that. So nightclub Category 1 is differentiated from nightclub Category 2 and 3 by that occupancy. Multi-purpose doesn't. It's silent on that. And so they wouldn't run afoul of their conditional use permit under the multi-purpose entertainment establishment by having more than 150 people there.
But fire code would say they can't have more than 150, correct? 200. Or 200, I'm sorry, 200. That's the fire code. Yeah.
And I believe that's under a completely different part of the ordinance than the zoning. That would be just under the fire code.
I think it's important that we address the concerns of the people that live there and the assisted living. That's the important thing here. However this is written, that's what we need to be aware of, is what the people in the neighborhood and in the community want.
I'm not really sure. I would be more than willing to give you a tour of the space. I'm not really sure that everybody understands the room placements to the assisted living. So when it was a hotel, there was a walkway that went through. They've since closed that off. But we have a room right there, Newport, that we can have music in. That is, we're sharing essentially a wall with them. And so we haven't had any noise complaints. The police have not shown up when we are having DJs in those other rooms. So I don't know the difference between having it in Yorkies, which all of our rooms are named differently, so we can differentiate between all of them. So I would be more than willing to give you a tour so you can see all of the rooms and how we move from space to space. But if we have not currently had any noise complaints, I don't see why having a DJ or a band in that space would make any difference. So, you know, we have DJs there every single weekend, just in the Rose or in the Willow. So the Yorkies is literally in smack dab in the middle of both of those. So it's kind of like a U shape where you've got the senior living up here, then there's a Newport, there's my office, there's another space here, hallway, the Crystal, which is upstairs, it goes through the Yorkies, then you go through there to go to the Willow, and then downstairs to go to the parking lot. So it's just kind of like a big U. And so if we're not having complaints in this room, and this one's in the middle, I don't see that I don't think that we would. And here's Yorkies at the very end where the golf is, and the senior living is on the other side. So if the senior living or whoever is not hearing the Rose that's closer, the Newport that's closer to them, they are not going to hear Yorkies. And you have to understand too that we have events in the Rose and the Willow, 25,000 plus. Some are less, but you know the general, it's about 15 to 25,000 events. We wouldn't want to compromise that with sound in Yorkies to make them upset because we're ruining their event that they've paid a lot of money for. So it's not going to be, I'm sorry? So if you have a wedding in the Rose or in the Willow, though they've paid a lot of money to be there. Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah. So I sell weddings and events all the time. I just sold a $25,000 birthday party for a woman in the Willow. So I wouldn't want to mess that up and make her upset and give us a bad review just because we're having, you know, karaoke or something in Yorkie. So it's all connected, and we wouldn't want to mess that relationship up with those people too. We depend on their, you know, reviews on the Wedding Wire and the Knot and that sort of thing.
Commissioner Bill.
I have one question. You said it's all interconnected, the buildings?
Yes.
But you have two different properties.
No. It's all one big building.
So the senior home is the same property
We
that
share a-
Eagle owns, or somebody?
Yep, they own it, right? No, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know Arjun's last name, you probably do, but he owns the front half of that property. There's a firewall between his space and our space.
There's a separation.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's a property line.
Okay, okay.
We're
'Cause
connected,
otherwise,
yeah.
it'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? We have a motion on the floor.
Would that satisfy Mr. Hoffman if we change it, or would you rather keep it the way it is?
I don't know if satisfy would be the correct description, but, you know, as I said, if it doesn't look like we're going to get an okay here tonight, and if that's the case, and it mean, you know, and the alternative is to postpone this for a month and to get the proper designation and make it acceptable and talk to our neighbors, then I'll do that.
To me, she was trying to help you and not be classified as, you know, a nightclub.
Well,
that's where the negative feedback is coming.
Yes, I understand, and I don't know how to fight that. Other than it seems to me that the biggest obstacle here may be the hours that we're talking about. From the legal or the ordinance descriptions that you're reading there, these things are basically the same thing. If you could restrict our hours and say 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock and make that one of the conditions.
I don't think you want us to vote on it tonight.
Okay, then, I hear you.
See, what you have to understand is we're trying to make this work for you, okay?
I do understand
There
that. I
is some
appreciate it.
resistance, not just on in the community, but on this commission to this idea of approving a nightclub. It's not just because of what you're doing
Understood.
right now or what you've done, but just because of the fact that it appears, the perception is that having a designation could open the doors to other things happening there that we don't want to see happening there. So in order to safeguard the community against that, we want to put you in a category that I think we feel would be safer that everybody could come to terms with and agree with, okay? We don't want to vote this down, okay? It sounds like you have a good business, you're trying to do some good things. What we're doing is trying to make this work for you, okay? So
I do understand and I appreciate it. So if you want me to say I'm satisfied, I'm satisfied.
all right.
I don't think the end result matters. It's just I don't know the difference between a nightclub and having like a band in there. So I don't understand the difference. Our intent is not to have like a nightclub, have a DJ with house music and have a line outside waiting to get in. That's not our intent. So
Again, we're not talking about intent. We're talking about what approving a nightclub could open the door to in the future.
yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that.
All right? Did I state it well?
You stated it very well.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, you gotta understand, we just give the recommendation
Understand.
to the city council. Now, if we gave a recommendation right now as a nightclub, I don't think it would go too well with the city council. So I would definitely go with us holding it over and then go from there to see if we can do the text amendment. I
That's
think
fair
that-
enough.
To make it
think
work.
That would be more,
Make this work.
That's not our intent anyway to have like a nightclub, so it's fine.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call vote.
Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Wait, before you go any further, this is a vote, a vote for the motion, we're not voting on the request. Okay, this is a vote for the motion to hold it over and to consider it at a delayed October meeting. Okay.
Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. We'll see you next month.
Good luck, huh?
Okay. Moving on. Item E, zoning calendar number 2678. This is a text amendment to the Waukegan zoning ordinance, sections 8.3-9, 6A6, and 6B4, and 6B9 regarding the Western Gateway Overlay District in the B2 Community Shopping District, adding casinos to uses allowed to have taverns, cocktail lounges, and outdoor dining as accessory uses, clarifying casinos as a permitted use, and to section 13.2, defining casino and helipad. Phew. All right, we're
It
ready.
was a long one.
Yes, it is.
So this is basically to just clarify some language in the city code at the request of our casino partner to make sure that it's clear for everybody that the uses that they would like to have, like outdoor dining and restaurants and cocktail lounges as part of the casino, are allowed as part of the casino. At the time that we made casinos a permitted use, there was no specific proposal, there was no idea on our part whether there would be a restaurant in the casino, whether there would be cocktail lounges, those kinds of things. It was done, as you know, 15 years ago, something like that, that change was made. So we just had it say that casino gaming was a permitted use. So this would change that from casino gaming to casinos. It would, there's a section 8.3-9, 6A, prohibited uses, prohibits taverns and cocktail lounges unless they're accessory to a restaurant or another use that's allowed. This would add casino to the category of what they can be accessory to, so the casino could have cocktail lounges, taverns, etc. It would add the words "or casinos" to the permitted uses listed in section 8.3-96B, so that it would read outdoor dining accessory to sit-down restaurants or casinos having enclosed dining room seating for not less than 100 patrons is a permitted use. It would replace the words in the uses. We have it currently listed as casino gaming. That would change to just casinos. So it's just cleaning up language. And then we would add a definition of casino and a definition of helipad. those definitions don't currently exist in the zoning code. So it's all for clarity purposes and so that the city's agreements with the casino operator are clear and universally understood and accepted. So it doesn't really change any of the uses or any of the ideas of what we plan to have there. It just
cleans up
fixes
the
the
language.
language. Yes.
Okay.
How does heliport come into this situation?
This casino proposal does have a helipad in it.
Is that FAA controlled? Or is
Yes.
that judgment you can make?
Well, FAA has jurisdiction, and so this just defines it so that we all agree about what a helipad is,
If the FAA allows it.
as long as they get all the approvals they need and all of that. Yes.
That's in a flight path runner. That's up to them.
Yeah. I believe that they've already looked into it well before they made a proposal to have it, but they obviously will get the required approvals for that.
Expecting some high rollers, it sounds like.
That's their goal. Their plan is to bring in their high rollers from all of their other facilities and have them leave some money in Waukegan, which works for me.
Any questions for city staff? Comments?
It's just on helipad. It says discharge of passengers or cargo. Is this consistent with other helipad uses in town? Is this definition?
Well, there isn't another definition of helipad in any of the city's codes.
Even for the hospital?
So there isn't a definition of it. So I believe that I know that there's a helipad at Vista Hospital. I don't know whether there are others other than the airport, but there is no definition in any of our language of what a helipad is. So this is adding a definition.
This is adding a definition, and this same definition would work for the Vista or for any other.
It would apply to any helipad, yes, unless we amend it at some future date,
That's
yes.
what I wanted to know.
I move for approval.
I'll second it.
We're not at that point yet. We're not at that point yet.
Time to go home.
Okay, first of all, do commissioners have any other questions or comments for city staff, for the petitioner? Okay, now I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out in support or opposition to this request. Okay, didn't expect any opposition. Go right into the vote, I guess.
Motion?
So just to clarify, the motion was a recommendation of approval for the text amendment, and that is the
Okay,
secondary.
we're going to get it, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to word that. You are recommending approval of zoning calendar number 2678, which is a text amendment to Waukegan zoning ordinance sections 8.3-96A6, 6B4, and 6B9 regarding the Western Gateway Overlay District in the B2 Community Shopping District, adding casinos to uses allowed to have taverns, cocktail lounges, and outdoor dining as accessory uses, clarifying casinos as a permitted use, and to section 13.2 defining casino and helipad. You are recommending approval.
Which I hope is their money.
Okay. That's your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please.
Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Great, that was easy. Okay, item 6, there's no other new business we need to discuss, correct? Okay. Item 6, informational items, I see none. Conditional use permit reviews, I don't believe we have any. I guess we're at the point of adjourning. Do we have a motion?
I have a comment that I want to,
Okay,
and I'll be really fast. This summer, it was extremely apparent that the city had put in a lot of time and effort on the Washington corridor. It looked great. I know I'm up here complaining, and I want to compliment the city. I think Washington has, it still has some issues, but it is so much better. And thank you. It's very obvious.
Thank you. Anybody
Definitely
else?
appreciate that feedback. I have to give credit to a number of other departments, in particular the building department. The addition of Stephen to our team has been fantastic for all of us. His was a brand new position, so having him partnering with our department, looking specifically at conditional use permits compliance, looking specifically at business licensing. He alone has generated, how long have you been in the job? 4 months? Okay. So just a few months, he's generated, I don't know the exact number, but approximately $50,000 in business licenses, just in things that he's caught that were missing. So he's been a fantastic addition to the team, and his work is very noticeable. In addition, code enforcement has at least tripled and maybe nearly quadrupled the number of inspections that they're doing, the number of citations that they're issuing. So they're working really hard. Our building commissioner's doing a fantastic job in working. As you know, he started in November. Our city engineer started in October. And that team is working hard specifically on transportation issues around Washington Corridor, which implements our Washington Street Corridor plan that CMAP helped us with a number of years ago that you approved or recommended for approval, that council adopted and is part of our comprehensive land use plan.
Okay, bye.
So these teams working together is really helping with that. In addition, Community Development Block Grant has a focused facade improvement program on Washington Street. So it's really a partnership of multiple departments, and we appreciate the positive feedback for sure.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, Public Works has also updated some of the lighting on Washington Street, so kudos to them.
Put in a plug. Thank you. Anybody else? I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Rivera,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 9:22. Horizon time.